Welcome back to Afternoon Live. As parents know, if your child isn't sleeping, you aren't sleeping either. So today we're getting sleep advice that will hopefully help your whole family get more rest. Here to share tips, we welcome the author of My One-of-a-Kind Body, Pediatrician Dr. Whitney Casares. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This is something I think every family experiences in some shape or form, even beyond those really tough infant days.
Yes, absolutely. Sleep is like the silent thing that helps us to be well. It's great for our immune systems. It's really important for metabolism, behavior, anxiety for our teens.
Yeah.
So super, super important.
And sometimes it's the last thing we think about when one of those things is in disarray. So it's important to remind ourselves.
Totally.
It's a big piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
We've got a graphic to share kind of the range of how much sleep kids might need by how old they are. That could be super helpful to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the infants, 12 to 16 hours a day. But I want to remind parents that are listening to this, I get a lot of phone calls or have a lot of visits with parents that say, I think my baby's not sleeping enough. Because infants, I remember, they feel like they're up constantly.
Yes.
So they can be so fussy. So if you added all that time that they were sleeping together, it would get to 12 to 16 hours. So don't stress out too much.
Okay.
Your baby is an individual. As a child gets older and older and older, they need less sleep. So that by the time they get to those elementary school years, it's more like 9 to 12 hours, and then teen years, 8 to 10 hours.
Okay.
But what I want to say to families is honestly, the time and paying attention to those specific kind of guidelines is less important than the things you're doing to make sure that your child gets consistent quality sleep.
Right.
Because your child will get the amount of time that's recommended if you do the things to set them up for success.
Perfect. And you've got a lot of great tips for us today, beginning with consistency with bedtime.
Yes. So if you put your child to bed at 9 o'clock at night on a school night and then 11 o'clock at night on a weekend night, you are basically sending your child to Chicago for the weekend.
Right.
And then bringing them back every single day, right?
So painful.
This is really not great for our system. We all know how that feels with jet lag. So that's how your child feels. So that's why it's important to have your child go to bed at the same time every night and then to wake up at the same time in the morning. Now, one way that you can tell is your child getting the right amount of sleep for them, for their specific body, is how late they sleep in on the weekends, naturally.
Yeah.
So if your kid sleeps in 4 or 5 hours later, you need to back up the sleep time in the middle of the week.
That's a huge difference. Okay, how about this one? No screens within an hour of bedtime. That seems pretty manageable if you think about kind of back timing the bedtime routine, I guess.
Yes, I think this is manageable for our elementary school kids. I think it gets really tricky when the kids get into middle school and to high school when they have devices. The recommendation from the American Academy of Pediatrics and pretty much every single psychologist out there is to not have screens in bedrooms for kids. So whatever you can do to limit the use, and I know myself, like this is not a judgment, it's so difficult to do.
Yeah.
I've downloaded all kinds of different apps. I have found that 2 things work well in my family with my patients. Number 1, a physical lockbox where you put things in and you have the key, which I know sounds kind of crazy, but is what it is.
Yeah.
The other is on the actual phone. So on an iPhone, for example, there are parental controls you can set up so your kids have different accounts, and you can literally just push the no button.
There you go.
And that's, I think,
I'm like, can you tell my kids are only in elementary? Because I'm like, oh yeah, sure, you can just take them away. You can't when they get older, and it becomes so much harder. Okay, next one is establish clear routine.
Yes. So this is about figuring out for kids what's the thing that's going to help them to relax, right? So we know that brains kind of get into that sense of it's time for us to go to sleep if they have the right kind of guidelines or if they have the right signals. So making it a little bit darker in the room, maybe making music a little bit softer, having it be that your kid has a bath if they're really little, or if they're older that they are watching something that's not going to be scary or going to be really like watching through reels or anything like that.
Okay, considering blackout curtains can be a great investment.
Yes, so depending on the time of year, especially when it's daylight savings time, making it so that your kids are sleeping in a nice, dark, cool, comfortable environment. So if you can't get that with just closing the blinds, get some blackout curtains. It's a really easy way to make it easier for you.
Super easy. It can make such a big difference. Okay, one more here, making sure that kids are getting exercise.
Yeah, so A tired kid, a kid who has been moving their body,
Yeah.
who has some access to air, to fresh air, they're going to be a kid who sleeps better. And there's a cycle with this, right? Because if you don't get adequate sleep, then the more difficult it is to exercise. And then if you don't exercise, you don't get adequate sleep. So if you find that your child has a harder time with this, just start slow, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and it can be like a dance around the kitchen. It doesn't have to be something crazy like an organized sport.
Right, exactly. That doesn't work for every kid, so you can find what works for every single family. Well, what about things like melatonin or other sleep enhancers if your kid is really struggling to get that downtime?
Yep, I would be very careful with using medications like melatonin. In kids who have autism, ADHD, some other neurodiversity issues, melatonin can be a really useful tool, but I really consider it the last resort.
Okay.
So if using melatonin for your child who is neurodiverse will make it so that you can do all the other things we talked about,
Right.
amazing.
Okay.
But for most kids, I really don't recommend it as a first-line therapy at all. And definitely talk with your child's pediatrician about
Of course,
using
that
it
makes a lot of
specifically.
sense. You mentioned earlier daylight saving. It is coming up where we will fall back. A lot of adults go, oh great, an extra hour of sleep. But I remember having little ones, and it totally throws you into chaos, at least for a day or two.
Yeah,
Are
totally.
there strategies to kind of tackle that time?
Yes, so in advance of daylight saving time, try to make it so that you're doing 15 minutes earlier bedtime.
Okay.
So that way you get it so that the body isn't having to have that major adjustment. If you can get it together to do it so you have 2 days of 15 minutes,
Sure.
you know, each time, each
Anything
increment
helps.
But if you can do just 1 day of each, that's going to make a huge difference for
Okay.
you.
We can do it.
We can do it. Always. That's always our theme. We can do
Exactly,
it.
we can do this. Thank you so much. So
course.
great to see you. Okay, Dr. Whitney's new book is called My One-of-a-Kind Body. We'll have more information on our website at katu.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.